Hello, I'm Jeff Bond, and welcome back to the Steward Chair, where we bring business leaders insights that go beyond the balance sheet to help you build a more resilient and impactful organization. Today, I'm going to be speaking with John Newland. He's the CEO of JOMA Construction in Athens, Georgia. We're going to unpack the critical importance of living out your values through employee ownership and the Greek concept of eudaimonia, which is the pursuit of a flourishing, well-lived life. This conversation is for every leader who knows that true competitive advantage isn't just about what you do, but how you do it. And we'll show you how John transitioned from a founder-led, from-scratch business into a 100% employee-owned legacy that is built to outlast its founder. Before we get started, if you haven't already, we'd love it if you'd follow this podcast wherever you're listening for future content and consider sharing it with a fellow leader. Now let's head into the studio with John. I'm here with John Newland with JOMA Construction here in Athens, Georgia. John, thank you for having us into your beautiful facility today.
Oh, well, thank you all for coming. I'm glad you could be here.
My pleasure. Well, we on this show really like to focus on the longevity of business and what it takes to steward a business. And it's whether it's people, a value set, a mission statement, of course, the customer relationships. It's all about the long-term sustainability of the business versus short-term gains. And there's a lot of things that you have to trade off with that. So when I say the word stewardship to you, when you think about it as a business leader, what does that mean? What does that word evoke in you?
Stewardship, well, I think exactly like you said, trying to help guide a organization, a business, through ups and downs and ins and outs. And so you can, keep on providing the services that whatever it is that you do, and keep everybody who is involved in that process, whether it is the employee stakeholders, in our case, employee owner stakeholders, our subcontractors, our suppliers, and just doing everything you can to keep things moving forward.
That's right. A lot of it is based on resilience.
Yeah.
And you've been through a lot since you founded the company in 2005. I think it would be helpful for our listeners to understand just the earliest context of getting into this business in the first place. I think you were flipping homes and kind of doing some of that work on yourself. So just share some of the earliest context of having the idea of starting a business.
Well, to be honest, I had no intention of having any employees or a building or trucks or any of that stuff. You're right. My wife and I did start at flipping homes. We were fixing up the houses that we were living in. We had the opportunity to do a couple spec homes along the way. And after the kind of great financial crisis, we were able to transition into doing actually jobs for people. So it kind of took the experience that we'd had, working for ourselves, and my wife was teaching, all through that. She still teaches. But we took that experience and we started doing some small jobs for people. And then just over a period of time that, hired one person, and then hired another person, and it really just kind of evolved from there. And now we have 23 employee owners, and we've completed about 1,000 jobs in our immediate area.
And on top of the employees, you have contractors, subcontractors. So how many human lives, as an estimate, would you say you touch through the business?
Over the 20 years?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I mean, just the number of homes I've been in, and it's probably close to 6,000 to 8,000, in our immediate area. Yeah. So, taking that and, thousands really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think about just the evolution of your business over the years, and we'll get to when you made the decision to become an employee-owned business, but you came across a word at some point in your lifetime called eudaimonia.
Yeah. And
that's kind of the core of your mission. For those that are unfamiliar with this Greek term, what does the word mean? What does it mean to you? How did you discover it? And how have you used that as a guiding principle for your business?
Yeah, I think it was Aristotle had, spoke about that in some of his writings, and just kind of living a good life, being, content. There are different variations that you can kind of go with, but I just always felt like if you're having to work, and almost everybody has to work to sustain their lives, that, being happy with what you're doing, and the people that you're working with is very important. I mean, if you're if your day is drudgery and you hate showing up and you hate what you're doing and, you don't want to do that, what kind of life is that? So, when I came across that, I was like, yes, this encapsulates really what we're trying to do and what I'm trying to do, in my life. Certainly not perfect, make a lot of mistakes. But, if that can be a guiding principle, I think it not only helps yourself, but also the people around you. And that whether that is the people that you actually work with or the people you work for. And really trying to, just have that exuding out of you so that when you come across people, because you do come across people who maybe aren't happy or have, had tragedies in their lives that are affecting how they interact with you. If you can continue to push that forward, I think it just makes your life better.
When did that become clear to you? Was that right when you started hiring employees, or did you kind of have an aha moment?
I think it really was when I came around it. So up until about 2017, 2018, we just had a series of home offices. So we were working out of our house, and we actually just this summer moved into the 10th home that we've either built or totally remodeled since we've been in Athens. And I think it was at the last house that we actually had a home office, with. I like to read, and I came across it, and so I think we put that on our website. We started putting that, in our materials that we share with our clients. Because again, it wasn't just something that we wanted to have internally, but we wanted people to know, hey, this is important to us, and we want you to be happy. We want to be happy, and we want you to be happy. Because the type of work that we do is quite a process, and it really affects all aspects of people's lives. From not only their money and their time, their family, their home. We're essentially invading their home more often than not, as they're living there and disrupting the flow and disrupting, just their daily lives. And so if they can go through that process and be happy about it for, simplicity, that just makes everybody's, experience a lot better.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
That's what I love about Greek words is there's so much meaning packed into a single word. I think in our vernacular, or English, accent, like we have words for everything, but they don't have that depth of meaning. Yeah. Like I've even seen meanings of the word like divine presence or happiness or joy and bringing your full self to the world. And I see how that emanates here in your company, and I see how you include and elevate your people. I've seen the great content that you put out to build trust. Not only here within your own culture or out there with your customers that you are serving and disrupting their lives, as you said. So how has the clarity of mission, what has that meant to your business as a leader that's now, 21 years in business? I'm sure you're thinking about business leadership has evolved and how you continue to build trust as the currency of business. So how has that kind of rooting of core values really helped you as a leader feel grounded in how you're moving forward from here?
Yeah, well, I think that's actually a good dovetail into, what we did, becoming 100% employee owned.
Yeah.
Like I said, when we started, or my wife and I started, I had a biology degree. I didn't go into construction management or, anything like that. I'd always liked to build things and models, when I was younger. But I knew that I didn't have the expertise of, all aspects of construction. I could watch somebody, lay down, like I can do that. It might not be perfect, but if I do it enough, I can get pretty good at it. And so, having that as a way to find people who did things better than I could, I felt that was a better path to try to, if we were going to be building a business, since we had transitioned from kind of working for ourselves to now working for other folks, that I did need to find people who had better expertise in whether that was finance or actually construction, and in marketing, in all those different things. I just knew I had to find the right people and put them in a position that they could succeed and provide them with whatever resources that they needed so that they could, live Eudaimonia. when we actually pre-COVID, we had talked about how we could have a partial ownership with some of our management group. And, anytime you have business changes, all the legal and financial components that go along with that. So we were working through that, and then COVID came around and we said, well, hey, let's put that on hold. Let's just kind of make it through this next phase, and then we'll come back to it. And I'm sure some people are like, oh yeah, we'll come back to that. That sounds good. But we actually did. And so when it did come back around, we said, hey, we had this idea, but now we have, this, I can't remember the exact numbers, but this many more people that are involved in JOMA, and how are we going to make that work if we only do it with a small, group of them? So I reached out to some different folks and found out that there is this other way, and called an ESOP, and which is just one of the ways that you can do it. But found that there was this pathway that we could, start to proceed down, where everybody, all the employees at JOMA could be involved, and they didn't have to put in money to do it. So they weren't, yes, they could financially benefit, but they didn't have to, take on the financial responsibility or potential financial responsibility if things didn't go, exactly as planned. So felt very, relieved that we found another way that it could be done, and again, that everybody could be involved. And it was quite a process, a lot of lawyers involved, a lot of financial firms involved, and it's not just something I thought up. I think there are, 7,000 or so, around the country that have done this, and very large companies have done it. And we're definitely on the smaller side of companies who are able to go through that. And really that comes down to money, But yeah, no, we're over 2 years into it, and keeping everything going is certainly the name of the game, and not just growing to, grow revenue and do more, but, really kind of how can we be better, and how can we improve the service that we provide to our clients.
Yeah. Help them live in eudaimonia.
That's right.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
So you said you felt relieved. Tell me more about that. So was there a tension that you were feeling prior to that as a business leader, thinking about the long term, or, where did that sense of relief come from?
Well, I think the relief more from that, the way that we were going to do organize the kind of partial ownership. Mm-hmm. There has to be some kind of money changing hands. I mean, and so it was either people were going to have to forego some of their either bonus or salary in order to, quote, buy into that kind of thing. And so that's why, asking people for money and asking people to, really contribute to something, of course in certain circumstances we have to do that, but asking people to literally buy into a company that, my wife and I had started was not something I was 100% comfortable with. Yeah. So the relief was that we found a pathway that they didn't actually have to buy into that.
Yeah, understood. So now that you're 2 years in, I'd love to get the context of the here and now, and, how you've seen the business kind of transform around that, and how you're feeling about it now. And then for other business owners that are listening to the show right now and considering, how do they shore up their company, their culture, and consider this potential model of an ESOP. I'd love to hear what you would have to tell them.
Well, certainly knowing exactly what your business does and how it does it, whether that's standard operating procedures and actually having those all written out, having, well-defined roles for everybody who's involved, certainly whether it's construction or, really a lot of different areas, everybody has to wear a lot of hats, and especially or until you can get to a point where people start taking those hats off, and okay, this person is now doing whatever task. So I think being able to actually have those things written out and have them very specific to your company and how it's organized, because there are tons of different construction companies, and they all do things slightly differently. Whether the owner is actively involved in, as we say, wearing their belt and actually hammering nails and cutting lumber, or if they're more have stepped back and they have people in those different roles and they're more of an overseer of the whole organization. So then being able to take all of that and really be able to project out where you want to go and seeing how what it's going to take to actually get to that. And if it's just doing more revenue and, getting bigger, that's wonderful. I would never say that that's been like our, driving, motivating force. Mm-hmm. I really do think getting better. And if we can get better, then the results, will be bigger.
Yeah, I love that. There's the whole story of Truett Cathy and Chick-fil-A when everyone was worried about Boston Market coming in, and the whole board was sitting around the table talking about how do we expand and add these new stores and all that. And he'd start banging his fist on the table and say, we need to get better before we get bigger.
Yeah.
So that's just another example of that, and doing that with the core values in mind. And so now that you are an ESOP and it's starting to take root, what are your greatest hopes and aspirations of what that will mean to the lives of your employees, of your families, and all the stakeholders that we talked about in the beginning that you touch?
Yeah. Well, ESOPs are a qualified retirement program. And they fall under, various parts of the IRS code. And really the way that it works is that, shares are allocated on an annual basis, and, the prior year's numbers are looked at, and there is a trustee that's involved. That really is the fiduciary for the employees. I mean, so that the role is to look out for the best interest of the employees. And like I said, every ESOP is different. Some ESOPs, the owner does it as a way to immediately step out, where, for us in particular, for me in particular, I wasn't going anywhere. I was planning on continuing to do what I was doing. And so I wanted it set up where people could start to see the benefit, over time. And it would also, give me incentive to stay on and continue to help the business get better.
Yeah. Continuing to invest in your people, the longevity of the business, which hopefully in our businesses will outpace us, right?
Exactly.
We're mere mortals in this world. And so that's kind of what we look at with this business, is to build not only the resilience that we talked about in our business through the core values and the people first mindset and the way in which we serve our stakeholders, but also how we build an enduring business that lives well beyond us. Mm-hmm. And, when you think about it, a lot of business owners talk about legacy building and what does that mean? And maybe that keeps them up at night, or maybe that's something that we're talking about in our CEO roundtables and private sessions. So, what does it mean to you to build legacy? And as you think about the life that this business can continue to become. Yeah.
Well, even though my wife and I started, I never wanted it to be really about me. I mean, I wanted it to be about, a business that was providing a service to the people, that we were working with. And so even in, our marketing, you can barely see me, at all in that. And that's very purposeful because, again, I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted it to be about JOMA and the people who were involved in that. And so going back to, finding people and putting them in the right positions. I mean, we have a lot of people who are, in management positions that started out, in completely other, positions within the organization. And we've had people that have come back, that we have either, gone away for boomerangs that have come back and that are involved again. And so it's just fun to see how, we can really get people into those right positions and really help them thrive. And then hopefully that they will be the ones, that will, take JOMA to the next level and become that legacy. Because I'm not going to be here, forever, and not that anybody is, but, at some point, I am going to step away. So being able to, establish a company and get people in those right positions so that it can continue on really is, the legacy that I'm looking for. Not like what is the legacy of John Newland, it's what is the legacy of JOMA Construction.
Yeah, it is the focus of our show in a lot of ways, is kind of grappling with our mere mortality and the fact that we're building businesses that have a life form of its own, that touch so many thousands of lives and the families that they depend on, the communities they serve, and just the ripple effect of good business in that way. And I love how you elevate and include your people. And it's evident in not only just the content that I've seen and looking at your company and preparing, but just walking the halls and, feeling the energy and seeing the way in which you do that, of kind of lowering yourself in a way to elevate the people around you. And I think that's what stewardship is all about. The chair, we're just keeping it warm.
Yeah,
Next
that's right.
person, we belong to the chair. The chair doesn't belong to us. And so that's the theme that we really talk about with our chief stewards that listen to this show. And so if you're giving them a final word right now and thinking about how to encourage chief stewards, the owners of their own businesses, whether they've founded it like you have or they've inherited it as a CEO, what advice would you give to them in this world that we're in and the future that we're trying to build that serves people and elevates humanity?
Wow. Yeah. Well, I don't know that it would be a single word. One of the things I do is every morning I have an affirmation. And it's just something that I have on my phone that I read and I go through. And it's very short. And probably about 10 years ago. So, I've been doing it for a while. And probably about 10 years ago, I came across a family coat of arms. I think it was like on Family Search or Ancestry or something. And it came across it, and it was from my father's side of the family. And across the top, it may have been like 2 lines or whatever, but across the top, it had it. And actually, let me bring it so I don't have to remember it. But so it says, "While I breathe, I hope, I live fully in the present, and I keep it together." So that's kind of the beginning of the affirmation. Then it kind of goes on from there. But yeah, I just thought that was something that, of course, I think about every day. Just I'm here, I'm doing what I need to do. And no matter what's going on, how crazy things are in the outside world that, we really have no control over, I'm doing everything that I can to day by day.
Breathing and fully present.
Breathing and fully present.
Yeah, that creates poise, in the chaotic world that we're in, and business is chaotic sometimes.
Yeah.
Things don't always go right.
No.
I think that's a great word of encouragement. John, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
The Steward Chair.
Yes.
It's a privilege.
Thank you very much.
John, thank you for joining us today. His insights on building an enduring business through transparency and shared ownership are right down my alley, and I believe a testament to the power of value-driven leadership. And so now here is your steward's call. Again, this is one key moment I think you can take from our conversation and put into practice today. John spoke about his morning affirmation, "While I breathe, I hope." He uses it to maintain poise in a chaotic industry. So your challenge, my challenge today, is to identify your own anchor phrase or value. This is something that keeps you fully present and grounded when the inevitable chaos of scaling a business hits your desk. Remember, building a legacy is not a future event, it's a daily practice. So what you do today will shape the impact that you leave behind. If you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to follow the Steward Chair wherever you get your podcasts. It's the best way to ensure you'll never miss an episode, and it really helps us grow this community. Please share this episode also with a leader that you respect. A final thank you to our incredible team, executive producers, Quentin, Thomas, and Daniel, our managing editor. They truly are the stewards behind this show. And I'm your host and researcher, Jeff Bond. And with that, now go and be a leader worth following.